Hello everyone, and today I would like to show to you the GTX 1060 CMD edition. So this is the GTX 1060 that I repaired a while back, and so I finally managed to do some proper overclocking on this because it had a pretty nasty problem, and that problem was that it would randomly, but usually after a very short time, crash if it pulls more than around 120 watts, which isn't a whole lot if you want to overclock. Long story short, remember how I removed one of these 16 volt input capacitors during the repair because it looked bulgy? Yeah, so I said that capacitor was probably redundant. It wasn't. Putting more input capacitance on this card fixed the issue. And I did it by using this. So yeah, there's just a whole lot more input filtering on this card now. You've already seen this in a community post. This is the output filter mod I did. So there's the red ones are 1200 microfarad, 2.5 volt, 7 milliohm ESR. The blue ones are 820 microfarad, 2.5 volt, 5 milliohm ESR, and then there's two 470 microfarad SMD polymers on each side of the card. So that's all the output filtering mods I did. And yeah, other than that, I have also implemented some volt mods. So this is hooked up to be interfaced with an Elmar EVC using the analog volt mod capability, like the onboard DAC of the EVC to volt mod, because neither of these controllers here support I2C. And yeah, I just like the EVC. It's a very nice tool. So I prefer this kind of volt mod over a potentiometer. So yeah, the two white wires are sense wires. They go to the output bank here to just sense VCore and memory voltage. I know this is not the best way to measure it. You would kind of want it behind the core at the memory chips, but it's mostly just so that I can tell like what kind of voltage am I setting for the volt mod. And then we have the two black wires, which go for this controller to the feedback pin and for this controller to the ref in pin, which are then controlling the output voltage by inserting or subtracting different amounts of current from those pins using the EVC DAC. If you want to know how this works, I've made a separate video about the analog volt modding on the EVC too. You can look that video up if you want to know more. Then I've also shunt modded the card. Now I made a video about shunt modding this card where I put 8 milliohm shunts on top of the existing 5 milliohms. However, that didn't really work out, so the 8 milliohm shunts right here actually had to go off the card because I was hitting the power limit. So even with the shunt mod, I was still hitting the power limit on the card. So the stock power limit is 140 watts. With the 8 milliohm shunts, the power limit went up to 230 watts, which wasn't enough. So I removed the 8 milliohm shunts and put on 5 milliohm shunts, which now means it can pull up to 280 watts, which I haven't hit yet. I have had the VCore VRM at up to 1.45 volts. It has not blown up yet. I'm quite impressed by this little 3-phase VRM. But yeah, like this card is pulling in excess of 230 watts in Firestrike. And using the PMD, I can tell that over 120 of those, well, more than 120, I think 140 is what I saw to go through the 6-pin. Yeah, and the 6-pin's only powering 2 VCore phases as far as I know, the rest is on the PCIe. Yeah, so that, like, Pascal gets very power hungry if you overvolted. So yeah, clockwise, with only the output filtering mods and the shunt mod, the card did 2138 on the core and a plus 700 offset on the memory. Not really exactly sure what that is in actual DRAM clock, which is already pretty decent. No, actually that was before the output filter mod. And with the output filter mod, memory stayed the same because there's only 2 extra caps on it, not really that much. But the core now does 2164 with the output filtering mod, which is 2 extra steps above the previous, so 27 megahertz higher, which is a pretty decent increase. And yeah. And then with the volt mods, I was able to get up to 2202 on the core stable, which is pretty good. 2200 on Pascal is very hard. There are some cards that can do 2200 stock, but they are extremely rare. So this one was 2200 only if modded, which is fair. It is one of the cheapest 1060 designs that you can get. And yeah. Memory-wise, it did need an overvolt, so these Hynix 8 gigabit MJR modules do have a little bit of voltage scaling. I had it up to 1.76 volts, at which point they now max out the slider at plus 1000, which should be 2500 in actual DRAM speed. And I did also break my target, which was 17,000 GPU score. It did break that. It actually almost got 17,100. And it also broke 15,000 overall score together with my 8700K, though that's just a bonus. So when I set out to mod this card, I had 2 goals. Do 2200 core and get 17,000 GPU score, and that's what I got. So now it's time for the next part, which of course is sub-zero overclocking, which is why all this kneaded eraser is on the card. That's for insulation from moisture, so everything around the core that is not supposed to get wet now has kneaded eraser on it. Same for the back side, where everything's kind of covered in kneaded eraser, so that the card doesn't get moisture anywhere where it's not supposed to go when I pull this down to minus 60 degrees. And yeah, that'll be the next step for this card. And I'm quite excited for how it will do. I really like this card. I really like how it turned out. Like it was really cheap. I got it for 30 euros as dead. It was a super easy fix. If you want, like, look up the video where I fixed it if you want to know how I did it. And I just like this card so much. It is such a cheap and simple design for 1060, and just the amount of overclocking I got out of this is so nice. Like, I love the 1060. The 1060 is an awesome card. It is so fun to tweak. Like, 60 level cards from Nvidia are just always kind of nice. I wish I had benched these sooner. I used to go for like flagship tier cards, which, you know, are also fun, but more often than not, they are just they kind of run very hot, and the PCBs don't really gain that much from being modded, because the bad ones just kind of blow up and the good ones are already good. But for these 60 level cards, like, you can use cheap PCBs. This is on a little 3-phase VRM, and it does 1.45 volts VCore. Like, you should really get any more scaling out of more voltage than that. So yeah, and like, you know, it is moddable. Like, you can see the amount of mods this thing has, and it does actually profit from mods. Like, memory scales with voltage, core scales with voltage, scales with capacitors. This was necessary because the card would randomly crash without it, though, well, I'm not entirely sure. Like, removing that one cap was probably part of it. The other part's probably that this thing, like, you know, probably ran at stock fan curve for many, many years until it got sold to me. So these capacitors probably just don't really work that well anymore. So yeah. It's just the amount of mods that fit on this card is just kind of nice, and the amount of scaling you get out of this little card is also very nice. Like, I could have just looked for like a 1060 Strix, which would have needed only like a little EVC hookup and it would be SoC ready, but I kind of like cards like these that are not at all meant for overclocking, but still are great at it anyway. So yeah, this thing does deserve the CMD edition status. It is a very nice. This card turned out very, very nice. I just kind of hope I'm not going to blow up the VCore VRM, because I don't really have enough e-power boards available right now, because I have a rather large number of cards that actually need e-powers. And also attaching an e-power to a card that has the VCore VRM on the left is like kind of hard. So yeah, worst case, if I blow up the VRM, I'm probably just going to buy some like really, really high spec MOSFETs and just put these in as replacements and just hope that that's going to be enough. But yeah, so I'm planning to run this card Sub-Zero rather soon. That might turn into a video, it might even turn into a live stream, it just really depends on how I feel about it. But this card's been very fun so far, and I hope it will still be fun in the future. So yeah, that's the GTX 1060 CMD edition. And that's the video. So thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed, and until next time, goodbye.